Well, just a few hours before voters go to the polls in this runoff election cycle, Governor Brian Kemp has endorsed his second in command, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, to take over his job, and President Donald Trump throwing his support behind two-term Congressman Mike Collins in his eventual, potentially as the nominee, race against Jon Ossoff in November.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your endorsement. You don't know what that means to me.
Georgia Representative Mike Collins is now a Trump-endorsed candidate. Overnight, the president throwing his support behind the two-term congressman. Speaking to a crowd in Columbus Monday, Collins said the president's support might be the thing that tips the scales his way.
I think no matter what, Trump's endorsement helps anybody, anytime, anywhere. He knows how important this race is, just like the people of the state of Georgia.
Collins' opponent, former football coach Derek Dooley, shrugged off the snub in a statement, saying in part, quote, "I have great respect for President Trump and look forward to working with him in the Senate." In another big last-minute show of support Monday, Governor Brian Kemp endorsing his second in command, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, to succeed him on the job.
I've said all along, my whole goal during this whole primary and runoff season was to make sure that we win in November, keep our state moving in the right direction. Burt Jones has been a trusted ally.
Jones was already endorsed by President Donald Trump. Now armed with the support of the president and the governor, he'll face healthcare billionaire Rick Jackson, who told me last week he can win without the support of either. Do you think not having his endorsement, not having the endorsement of Governor Brian Kemp throughout this cycle has hurt your campaign?
No, obviously, it would have been easier to have that, but I went into this knowing that. We have a good relationship. I think he respects me. I respect him, and we're going to get along, and I'm going to be his favorite governor.
And if you remember, Rick Jackson was running a campaign ad that made it appear like Governor Brian Kemp was endorsing him, such to the fact that Kemp had to actually come out and say, at the time, I have not endorsed anyone. When he was asked about that today, Kemp said, I am not against Rick Jackson, I'm just for Burt Jones. Outside the Georgia State Capitol, Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.